fixed over the next 3 years.
Call the meeting to order. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, we have a number of folks online tonight, so we will do a roll call to start the meeting to get attendance.
So again, board members, if you can say here to make sure that we can hear in here and online for those that are attending via Zoom. Wendy.
Here.
Kristen.
Here.
Oh, got her, excellent. David G.
Here.
Annie.
She's showing online.
Yeah. Annie, can you hear me?
Here.
Got her. Tyler.
Here.
Christine.
Here.
Leslie.
Here.
Patricia.
Here.
Rebecca.
She said she just texted me, she needs to be promoted. I'm sorry? Oh, I don't know. Yes, she says yes. She just texted me. Yeah.
I'll let her get promoted just to make sure she can hear.
I'm here.
We got you. Thanks, Rebecca. Sean?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
David T?
Here.
Got him. And Tom?
Here.
And I don't see our student reps, Claire or Ben, here tonight. All yours, Sean.
Alrighty, citizens' comments not related to the budget. I didn't see anyone, it was just over there. I don't see any. Is there any online, Diane? Nope, alright, nobody online. Addition? No, I meant no one online who wants to comment. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Who wants to comment? No, all right, moving right along, additions, adjustments to the agenda by the board of superintendent.
I have none.
All right, anyone else? Haven't heard of any? All right, seeing none, moving right along, budget workshop. I will turn it over to Jay.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to ask Mandy to do the budget presentation tonight because she has worked so hard on it. She has been instrumental in putting this together. And I'd like to shine the light, the fact that she's worked so hard and that she's ready to answer any tough questions that come along the way here. So we'll give Mandy a chance to go up. And we do have a presentation, so you want to make sure you can position yourself so you can see the projector screen as Mandy is moving up. And as Mandy is getting ready, so the budget committee has seen most of this, but there are a few pieces, as we had told them at the last budget meeting, that still needed to be taken care of. So they're kind of, they've seen about 90% of this already. So there's probably 10% that they haven't seen at this point, and it was just stuff that needed to be added into this first round. And as Mandy is, again, continuing to get ready, this, Mandy will talk about this, but this is the budget side of the budget. There's also a revenue side, which is the money that's being brought in through what's called the ED 279, which is the state allotments that we get. That has not been released yet. We expect it to be released at the end of next week or possibly the beginning of the next week. Their date, I believe, is January 30th or 31st, something like that. And since that falls on a Friday, it may end up being the next week, the beginning of February, before we see it. So again, this is kind of what we're up to and where we put together with the expenditure side of the budget. And with that, Mandy, I'll turn it over to you, and I promise, I told her I would try to be very quiet during her presentation, so.
I don't know, can everybody hear me? Sorry, public speaking's not my forte, so please bear with me. So just to start the budget, I just wanted to kind of do a reminder of the goal, which was to balance the needs of all members of the RSU number 38 school community while maintaining fiscal responsibility. In this presentation, I wanted to focus on the carry forward, the unassigned fund balance, reserve accounts that we're looking to establish, and then of course present the first draft of the budget. On this screen, this is the carry forward, and I just want to explain, so how the carry forward works is every year we usually have an amount in our unassigned fund balance, or our fund balance rather, and with that fund balance we can do a couple of things with it. We can keep some as unassigned fund balance, and we can allocate some of that fund balance to other things. So it has been RSU's past practice to allocate a portion of that every year to the carry forward. What the carry forward does is that reduces the additional local dollars that we have to raise for our taxpayers. So you can see over the years, there's been some years that have been lower than this year. I anticipate having it be, and there are some years that have been higher. I mentioned last year that this amount is likely to start coming down because we no longer have ESSER funds. And so having those ESSER funds obviously allowed us to pay for some things out of that are now being shifted to the general fund budget. And so at the end of the year, we, will likely have less funds left over in our budget. So this year I anticipate, and again, this is just an anticipated figure at this time because we don't know our full revenue picture, but I do anticipate 792,656. 700,000 of that is regular carry forward. The other 92,656 is an adjustment that we get for superintendent's agreements, and you'll see that in each one. Like last year was 901,347. Our regular fund carry forward was 800,000, and then the additional was the 101,347 that we got for our superintendent's agreements last year. Sorry, my screen's not moving. There we go. This is a screen talking about the unassigned fund balance. I know we've had a lot of conversations about this, and not everybody fully understands how fund balance works. We did have our FY23 audit finalized, and our fund balance was the 2.4 million that you see at the top. If you remember, and again saw on the last screen, we allocated 901,347 of that to this year's budget. So that's already been determined to offset local dollars for this year's budget. So that brings me down to 1.5 million. I anticipate when our audit's final, you'll see the note says prior to audit, because our audit for FY24 is not finalized. But I do anticipate another little over 300,000 being available at the end of this year. That will bring us to the 1.8. Sorry, I'm having a hard time reading my screen myself. And then, of course, we have to apply the unassigned, the carry forward for next year. So that's the 792,656 that you see next. And then we are looking to establish a couple of reserve accounts just because of increased costs for these things. We've talked a lot about capital improvement projects and how it's hard for Sean to do any large projects. So we're looking to establish a capital reserve account for him to do major projects, such as roofing and things like that. So we're looking to establish that. We're hoping to put 450,000 of our unassigned fund balance in that, and then also establish a special education reserve account. This would probably mostly be if we have out-of-district placements that we weren't anticipating. There could be other circumstances that we may need it. You know, there could be legal reasons or interpreter services we weren't able to budget for, things like that. But again, we want to establish an account because if a special ed student moves in that has high needs that we didn't budget for, we're still required by law to provide those needs. So after establishing both those accounts, I anticipate having $545,000 left in my unassigned fund balance at the end of FY25. So this just goes into explain a little bit further about the capital reserve account. Again, we're looking to establish a capital reserve account. So you will see this as a separate warrant article on the budget. When we do the warrants that go to the towns, it'll have to be voted separate. So it'll be a warrant article to establish the account. And then there'll also be a warrant article to expend. And we are looking to do both in the FY26 year. So we want to establish it with $450,000 and then anticipate spending around $274,000, $179 for the Manchester roof that needs to be done, and about $95,000 for the Reed Field roof that needs to be done. Again, these are estimates, but this will be another warrant article that will need to be voted on when we vote on warrant articles. The next slide is the special ed reserve account. As we stated, we wanted to put about $75,000 just to start establishing this account. The hope is to be able to put a little bit in each year. And at this point, we don't anticipate having to spend it. That being said, we would write the warrant article as such that it would allow us to spend it on things that specifically qualify for this fund to be spent on. So again, you would see two warrant articles. You'll see one to establish the account, and then you'll see a second warrant article that would allow us to spend it in the emergency that, you know, we had a situation arise that we would need to spend that. But as of right now, Ryan and I do not anticipate having to use this in the first year. This is just a list of the warrant articles that you will see in the budget process. And we can just go on to Article 2. So this is Article 2. It's regular instruction. I won't read that all to you, but it does, and I will give you guys a handout for this so you can have it in paper format as well. But it does explain what this entails. It's basically classroom instruction, salary, benefits for teachers, and everything that goes along with regular instruction. Last year we were at just over 9.5 million, and this year we're looking at being just above 10 million. So that article in itself has a 5.3% increase. Article 3 is your special education article. This one, again, it encompasses everything to do with special education. So again, your staffing, speech, PTOT, out-of-district placements, all that stuff would be in this article. Last year, we were at a little over 3.2. This year, we're at a little over 3.6. This article in itself is up 12.69%. Just to let you know, a couple of the things that are causing this article to be up is we did add 2 ed techs for CDS purposes. And then we also added an additional amount for interpreter, because we're finding that we are spending a little bit more on the interpreter than budgeted last year. So we want to make sure that we're fully funding that. The next article is career and technology, technical education. Not a lot to say about this. It's a zero article for us because our students go to CATSE. Other instruction, this one includes, it does just say co and extracurricular. I apologize, I should have added it. This year it also includes summer school. So the increase to this budget is going from $567,000 to $646,000, which is a 13.99% increase. Again, the large increase to this particular article is because of summer school. 61,000 of that 79,000 is summer school. The rest is just some small cost of living increases for co and extracurricular supplies, as well as small increases for the stipends for any of your co and curricular coaches. The next article is the student and staff support. This is where guidance, help, library, nurse, technology, social worker, all those types of services fall. This article is going from just over 2.2 to 2.5 million. Again, this one is a fairly significant increase just to this article. It is 11.98. This article has, again, two increases that we had asked for. One is the EAB program that used to be funded out of ESSER. That's a $23,000 tag. And then the other one is the technology lease, which was approved last year as a plan for, Diane had a 4-year plan on how to get the technology budget up so that we're offering adequate technology each year. So 95,000 of that is for the new technology lease that we would be adding. The next one is system admin. This is the superintendent's office and board of directors, so any expenses directly related to the school board. This also includes like our audit expenses, legal expenses, things like that. This article is going from 829,561 to 859,614. This has a 3.62% increase. The school administration article is your building principals, their secretaries, and anything associated with their offices. Again, not a huge increase to this budget line, mostly salary and benefits. This one is going from 1.4, almost 1.5 to just over 1.5. So a $65,000 increase to that one. Article 9 is transportation. This includes anything to do with transporting students to and from school. This is all your school buses and your bus drivers, as well as the van drivers, and we also have a bus monitor. This does also include some out-of-district special ed transportation as well. This article is actually going down. We did not purchase a bus last year, and we had anticipated purchasing a bus. Instead, we did the 2 vans, and we're not anticipating purchasing any buses or vans for next year. So we were able to bring our lease line down just under 60,000. So this article was actually able to come down a little bit. The next article is your facilities and maintenance budget. This is everything facilities, so custodians, buildings, grounds. So this is where any large projects that Sean can get out of the budget, he would. So he'll do flooring, maybe bathroom repairs. Also in this line to note is all utilities, so electricity, fuel cost, and those things all come out of these lines as well. This budget was 3.5 million last year. We're at 3.7 this year for a 5.61% increase. And there were no significant requests in this budget line. Article 11 is another one that is a 0 increase, as well as a 0 balance for us, because we don't have any local only debt at this point. That was paid off a couple of years ago, and so we have nothing that falls in this article. Article 12 is all other expenditures, and this is really just the school nutrition program, and it's just the local dollars that are required to help cover. It is also transportation for any rec programs. And so again, we don't see an increase to the, needing an increase to this budget line. This is just a summary of what I just went over, each of the articles and the percent increase. And you'll see at the bottom, it shows the total budget being at $24,497,524.18, which is currently at a 6.73% overall increase. The next slide is just some important budgetary notes. We discussed most of these in the budget committee. These are some of the additional requests that were being asked for. So the first one is the summer school that I spoke about for the $61,000. There's a credit recovery program that is used at the high school. This is used both during the school year and in the summer school program. And that was previously paid out of, both of these were previously paid out of ESSER. The technology lease, again, that was, Diane had done a presentation last year. This was a 4-year plan to get the technology department up to where it needs to consistently be able to provide adequate technology each year for all of our students and staff. So that lease would be an increase this year of just the $95,000. The math curriculum, one of these, again, was a previously approved program. The high school has, I believe it's between $17,000 and $18,000 left of their 3rd year of this math curriculum. And the middle school is looking to add an addition of a math curriculum program as well. So it's the combination of those two. One is budgeted at around 17 and one's budgeted at 23, I believe. And so that's what that is. The next one is the CDS Ed Techs for special education. That's roughly $130,000 increase to the budget. This obviously really depends on, you know, staff experience and what they take for benefits, but this is our best estimate of what it would cost for 2 additional ed techs for the special ed program. Again, as I spoke before, also in special ed, we needed to increase the interpreter costs because we are finding that we are spending more on interpreters. And so that's an additional $30,000, and then the EAB program was the $23,000 that I had spoke about earlier, and that was previously covered out of ESSER. So that's a total of $393,000 for additions to the budget. And the last slide is just a reminder as to what things have been added to the budget in the last, to this year's budget as well as previous year's budget that was previously funded by ESSER. So again, the summer school credit recovery and EAB are the ones we're asking to go into the budget for this year. And then as just as a reminder, the elementary guidance counselor, the elementary nurse, elementary principal, half-time math and literacy interventionist, and then the high school technology ed tech were all items that were previously covered by ESSER and put into the general fund in previous years. And I think that's it, other than important upcoming budget dates. And our next budget committee meeting is on the 5th.
Questions? Go ahead, Christine.
This is a kind of simple one, I think. I'm just curious, you mentioned income from superintendent's agreements. Do we have any students that go out?
We do. We have both some that come in and some that go out.
Yeah. Is it
Yep.
roughly a wash?
Yeah,
terms
it's
of
pretty
money?
close.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yep.
All right, Brian, go ahead.
What is the special ed interpreter?
So it's a sign language interpreter for a deaf student.
Oh, basically.
Yeah, Christine, go ahead.
So the 2 CDS ed techs, are you Are you in this this round of, okay, so you're anticipating, what's that gonna look like? Oh, I see. Okay, coming in from CDS, who have them or who will need them. Got it, okay.
Online, I believe we have somebody, I can't see who, but
Annie.
Annie, all right, go ahead. Annie, go ahead.
Just real quick, so I can categorize it sort of in my own head. And it's not hugely important, but is the SRO under Article 10 as well?
The SRO is under, yes, Article 10. Yep,
Okay, I just wanted to, okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, yeah, Rebecca, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is about facilities. I feel like I'm not on the facilities committee this year, but I have been almost the entire time I've been on the board. And I feel like I remember we've done a lot of roofs. And when we did the facilities bond, I thought that we had taken care of all the roofs so that we wouldn't have to worry about it for the next 15 to 20 years. But can someone just refresh my memory on that, please?
So Sean's not here, but from what I know and understand is the roofs are done in sections. So when we got the bond, we were able to do some of the sections that were due at that time. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that every few years, there's a new section that needs to be done. So my understanding is no school, it's not common to have one school get their entire roof fixed at one time, it's sections.
And if I can just add, the high school, when we did the bond, the high school roof was completely redone. That was the only roof that was completely redone, and that cost us about $1 million out of the bond just for the high school. So again, Sean staggered based on what he could get out of the bond at that time versus what he knew was coming up for different sections. So yeah.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I know we mentioned earlier, but what about the parking lots? Is that part of the budget too?
So at this time, it is not, to my
That
knowledge.
was my only concern was the hump that's growing and safety concerns.
Yep. So I don't believe it's in the budget at this time. I don't believe Sean built it into his facilities budget. That would be something he'd have to look at, but I think the problem is the roofs are taking a priority. And so I think his hope is to do the parking lots in the next year. So by FY '27.
Thank you.
Yep.
Brian, go ahead.
The hump? I'm so curious,
No,
where's the
Yeah,
hump?
it's a growing frost heave
Where?
in Reedfield.
Really?
And my concern was is someone walks on that trips, we're in a mess. But
Is it out back in the front? I'm just curious.
wasn't that?
Is it at Mount
Is it
Vernon? Are you
is it
thinking
at Mount Vernon?
It's not-
Yeah.
it's Mount Vernon,
Yeah.
Okay, you threw me off when you said Reedfield.
Yeah.
I was like, wait,
Mount
what?
Vernon, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the hump. It's
The
good.
hump, I could.
Yeah.
It's actually the pavement has created a crack and
Yeah.
it's,
Frost heave.
so in the winter, it's worse
All
than,
right, yeah. Over
Yeah.
a culvert?
yep.
Sure.
Yeah, it definitely needs, it's gonna be a major project because there's obviously water down there somewhere that will need drainage to get out, so.
Get over the hump.
Any other questions at this time for Mandy?
So,
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Leslie.
so I'm assuming that the additions then that you outlined are submissions that people have already made to you. So can you just recap a little bit of the process so far?
Yes, so the way that the process usually works is, back in November, I send out to all the building principals and the directors sheets that have their budget lines on them. They go through them, they look at what their needs are, and then they submit them back to me. Usually, I think they had 3 to 4 weeks. They submit them back to me with any increases that they need, or if there are lines that they can decrease, they'll let me know that as well. And then they also have a separate sheet where they can put in specific requests. So if they have something that's not just like a cost of living increase, or, like if they have an online subscription, sometimes online subscriptions will go up each year. So it's not just something like that. It's more like this is completely an addition, right? And so those items will come in on a separate sheet. Usually Jay and I then review them. And sometimes Jay will make a decision whether or not this is something that is even feasible. If he feels like it's not even feasible, then it doesn't go into the budget. If it's feasible, we usually put it into the budget, and then it was presented to the budget committee to let them know what the increases are. And then at that point, the budget committee can say at any point, like, yay or nay, we're not gonna keep this in. But as of right now, as the budget stands, those items that were the addition are actually factored into this budget.
Christine, go ahead.
So is it true that the budget committee has met and discussed all these and decided, like, are you guys deciding to share that with us? Or are these recommendations for moving, like, to put these in the budget? Can somebody answer that?
I guess I'll speak for everybody, and I think, at least for the first draft, to get a 5, we should put them all in. Knowing that summer school was coming off of ESSER funds, we knew that was gonna be a big increase. And a lot of the other increases, like for special ed, we have to expense them, so we have to expense them. And then I believe there was also a request for curriculum materials for the middle school, to kind of address the math scores that we got back in September. It's an expense that we have to pay for it. So I think of the 3 big tickets that were asked for, they were all either mandatory or they're coming off of grant funding. So we just need to eat that increase.
Okay, thanks.
And Tyler, if it's okay if I just add in, like, I give the principals and directors a lot of credit this year because they really just brought to the table the things they absolutely needed. As you guys are aware, when you're budgeting, sometimes it becomes like a wish list or whatnot. I give the principals a lot of credit in saying, okay, what have I got? The work they did with Mandy to go back and review and adjust their budget lines accordingly. And they came back with, this is what we're asking for. So that slide that said important budgetary notes, that really is all they're asking for. There was no above and beyond, there was no wish list. They're pretty much, that's it. So I just want to give them credit here as we're sitting here, and we talked through several things and stuff, but they did an excellent job in just coming through and saying, when you see that important budgetary notes and it comes down to 393,000, that's all they asked for. So that's it, which is, phenomenal as far as I'm concerned. With what they've asked for. In previous years, it's looked different. It's looked higher than that. So I think they took their responsibilities very seriously and just said, this is absolutely what we need. I'm not asking for anything else. So I just want to give them credit for that.
Thanks for.
And I know we're going through the process just a little different this year, so I just want to make sure that we're being sort of really intentional about talking about the processes that we're using, about how everybody weighs in with input and how they come to that spot, so that we keep everybody informed as we keep moving forward, and we remind ourselves of where we are, where stuff comes from, and where decisions get made and where they aren't being made, in a silo, and so on and so forth. So
I'd also like to add, just as some information, the salary increases because the reality is salaries makes up the vast majority of our budget. Salary increases alone are about 4% of this increase. Health and dental are another 1.74%. So just to give you an idea of, they really did try to stay as status quo as possible. A lot of this is just contractual obligations that we have to salary. And then I did project a 10% increase to Anthem. With any luck, we get the figures in and that number's less. And I can bring that number down, but we won't know that probably until March, unfortunately. And the same with dental, I did a 7% increase. Last year, just as a reminder, we had an 11.4% increase to Anthem. So just putting that up.
Brian, go ahead.
The other fixed costs, power, lights, paving, or not paving so much, but plowing,
So-
heat,
Yep.
so all those are sort of.
So
fixed
plowing
costs.
stayed status quo because if you remember, we extended for 2 years the contracts with everybody that had previously got the contracts agreed to extend at the same rate for 2 years. So that was helpful. Electricity went up, but propane came down. So they weren't quite a wash, but almost. So my electricity and fuel costs really aren't up that much. We are spending a little less fuel. We're trying to make sure that the thermostats aren't set to 74. And that's made a big difference, making sure the thermostats are set, at 69 or 68 or 70, so whatever Sean has it set at. But that has made a big difference. And then obviously, when we don't have such cold snaps like we do right now, that helps too. So last year was also a mild winter, so that helped. But yeah, our propane costs also came down, so that helped.
Do you know off the top of your head what percentage of that total highway budget that might add up to? It's on the budget committee, we were looking at a lot of those things that are really pretty well fixed, and there's not a lot of variables. We talked about some other mandated things that the school has to do, depending on the need.
I don't have that percentage increase, but I'd be happy to get that for you.
Yeah,
Yep.
So going back to kind of, Leslie, what you just said. So again, we know this is a first look, but everybody's here. So if you have any suggestions you'd like to make, the budget committee is going to be meeting ahead of the February 5th meeting. So again, it doesn't have to be right here, right now. You may have things that you think of later and you share them or communicate them out with either the budget committee or Sean or Rebecca or myself. So that way we can kind of fold those in together as we're looking at, is that when you're looking at that number and or that percentage, knowing it's probably going to come down a little bit, but again, do you want it down any further? So we're looking for suggestions and, to come back and have more conversations about what's in the budget minus those fixed pieces. So just kind of keep that in mind. We're looking for suggestions at this point that the budget committee will then kind of mull over to bring back again in February. At the next budget meeting in February, they would bring that back to you guys and say, okay, here's some suggestions we have to get to the second draft, so.
That librarian position that was cut last year, could it be added? It was just a part of the position. I just think that it would be really nice if we could get kindergarten back to story time and the pre-K, if that's what was hit.
I got it recorded as a suggestion.
Thank you.
Christine, go ahead.
This is not complicated math, so it's probably right, but it looks like if there's a total 6.73% increase and there was 4% salary, 1.74 health and dental, then it's less than a 1% increase overall for the budget. So, I mean, I have no suggestions. I think that you guys have done an incredible job keeping things tight, and thank you so much. I have nothing but gratitude.
So I mean, I agree with what Christine says, but there's no other increases you see coming besides possibly, hopefully health insurance goes down, but.
No, at
this is
this
pretty
time, I
much
also
set.
factored in 15% to property and casualty insurance. And I factor that in above actual costs and not budgeted costs. So if you look dollar for dollar, it's not necessarily going to be 15% on every line because we do it on actual cost. But yeah, hopefully anything will be able to come down.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And again, it's probably just Anthem and dental. We won't know property casualty in time to change our budget. Unfortunately, we never know that one in time to change the budget.
Right.
And I'm gonna kind of just throw this out now because we're entering into that season where you'll start to see movement amongst positions and stuff. And I mentioned this to the budget committee. We might want to, like, if this number is not palatable, we might want to look at attrition and not filling positions via attrition, just so that way we're not cutting anybody, specifically. But again, I just brought that up at the budget committee. I'm just mentioning it here because as you get into that end of February, beginning of March, early April, that's when you start to see movement. So again, that could be potential savings if that's the direction the board wants to go in terms of looking for savings is, just we'll do it through attrition. Kind of thing.
Leslie?
Then it may be also helpful just to add upfront that that view is never intended to be personal.
Right.
We have to look at the positions and their impact and what we need in order to proceed. And while there may be an opportunity for something there, I already have a couple in my head that are just non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And that's, again, it has to be what it has to be. So best decisions we can.
Oh, you got a
Annie?
hand up.
Annie?
So just going back, Mandy, to your first slide, I don't have it in front of me. So of the carry forward, was it 450,000 that was to be allocated for the capital reserve fund for the roofs? I don't have the itemized list, but my question really is the remainder of the funds, I'm trying to remember, is that in a CD or?
No, so the way it works, a capital
Okay.
reserve account, is basically, I guess I would liken it to a savings account, and it's a savings account that can only be used for a capital reserve project. So we
Okay.
put 450,000 into it and expend the 274. Again, that's an estimate on the cost, but the intent
Okay.
would be 274. Leaving the difference in that account for the future. And so each year, if we have money available, we would continue to fund that reserve account, and then Sean would be able to use it for large projects such as parking lots and roofs and things of that
Sure.
nature.
Okay.
Same with the special ed reserve account. That 75,000 will sit there in that account until it is actually needed for a special ed eligible purpose.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Tyler? Thank you.
This is more of a request for the next budget committee, but can we look at anticipated, or basically just look at our staffing levels across the district and kind of get a sense for what our class sizes are and
Absolutely.
if there are areas that need to be looked at?
Absolutely.
Question when it comes to the reserves. And I've had a lot of questions, so I think I know the answer, but I want it publicly out there. What happens if we didn't have like a reserve and a special ed student moved in? Like, what happens?
Then we have to go ask the taxpayers for more money if we can't afford it in the budget. If we can't make cuts, or if there aren't other places that we are saving funds that we know of for sure that we can expend it from, then we have to go to the taxpayers and ask them for more money.
Right, thanks. I knew the answer, but I wanted that publicly because I've been asked those type of
I mean,
questions.
we do have the ability to transfer from one warrant article to another up to a certain amount without a vote, but over a certain amount, we have to take a vote on that. To be honest, I haven't had to deal with that yet, so I'm not sure if that has to go back to the taxpayers for a vote or not. But yeah, if we don't have enough in our overall budget, you can't expend more than what you approve. So whatever you approve at the end of the day for the budget, if we go over for any reason, we have a major catastrophe and we go over, we have to go back to the taxpayers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, for me, it sounds like, without looking at the other side of the effect, like 6.7, I know like 5 point, it's fixed. But what does that look like to the average taxpayer? I know that's not where we're at tonight. So for me, it's tough to say is 6.73% okay or not. I mean, I appreciate the work of really pretty much besides, what, 5.7, less than 1% of it is fixed, so you're gonna have to cut something, but to me, it really depends, what does that look like to the tax bill? Because people are struggling, and, I mean, I know people appreciate people not asking for stuff, but sometimes you may have to look at what you have and reevaluate, how can you do it better? And I think that may have to happen. So I want it on record. I appreciate everybody's work, to not have a huge, to not add extras, but I'm not quite sure where I'm at yet. I wanted that to be clear. So that's what I have to say.
Can I ask, what was the number last year? That last number, was it 7 or 5?
5.77.
Thank you.
I think we started at 5, we started at 5.5 last year, right? Or we started at 7.5 rather.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I was like, it wasn't 5.
No, we ended at 5.5.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Rebecca.
Yeah, I'm kind of at the same place you are, Sean. I'm not really sure how I feel about it, but I'm curious what the budget committee has done to look at where we're at now, and if there's anything that we can do to be more efficient during this budget process.
I would say that we were kind of, after the first meeting where we got the first draft, we kind of wanted to take it to the full board to kind of see where you guys wanted us to look, in terms of, because basically we got a budget that was, 90% of the increase is fixed. There's nothing that we can do about that increase, and the majority of that other 1% is summer school and stuff coming off of grants or mandatory expenses for special education. So we weren't basically, if we were going to reduce it any further, we would have to make cuts, and we weren't in a position to start looking for cuts until we went to the full board.
No, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate that as well. I guess I know there was some questions about positions last year that were recommended to be cut, and we didn't end up cutting, but I didn't know if we had any data on their effectiveness over the past year.
That's a good question. I'm going to go back and do a little research and bring that to the budget committee. I think that's a good.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Any further discussion, comments, suggestions? All right, well, as Jay said, if you have any, I would suggest getting those to the folks on the budget committee. All right. Do we have any citizens' comments for the budget? I didn't see anyone come in this room. Anyone online that wants to comment on the budget? Diane? Yeah, no problem. All right, no response. Well, you can always, anyone listening out there, you can always email any of us or especially the budget committee. Email them with thoughts or suggestions that you have. Anybody can feel to reach out. These processes aren't always easy. And I want to remind folks it's easier to bring up your concerns. I'm not saying you can't bring them up at any time, because you can, that's part of the process, but it's always easier to bring it up at the beginning.
Just say something about that.
Yes.
So the way that people should get in touch with us is by email, right?
Correct.
So I think we need to check our spam folders very regularly, because sometimes we get, I think a lot of emails are filtered out when they come from personal emails. So we say all the time, contact us, email us, contact us. And if we're not getting those, then we really need to make sure that we check, spam.
Well, that's a great reminder. Tyler, go
I'd
ahead.
also like to add, a lot of the board members have published our cell phone numbers on the website. I know I check my cell phone more than I check my email. So that is another option as well. If you're not getting a response via email and it's going to our spam folders, shoot us a text or give us a call.
Yes. Rebecca, I see your hands up, so go ahead.
Yeah, I just had one more question. If we get thinking about the budget and we have more questions, are we able to attend the budget committee meeting and ask those questions?
So the short answer is absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, moving right along then. I think is everybody good? Okay. We are gonna go into, we'll make a executive session to consider labor contract proposal between RSU 38 administrators and the RSU 38 Board of Directors pursuant to 1 MRSA 405D.
I move to go into executive session to discuss labor negotiations between RSU 38 administrators and the RSU 38 Board of Directors pursuant to 1 MSRA 405 subsection D.
Second.
Having been moved and seconded, I will call for a vote.
All righty, Wendy,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
David G,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Patricia,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
David T,
Yes.
and Tom. Yep. So unanimous.
Unanimous. All right,
We are
we
in.
will be going into executive session. All right, I think we got everyone. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right. 8:04, 8:05, 8:04.